Welcome to a fast and efficient guide on skills in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. Let's get started. Skills improve the chances of accomplishing a specific task from your base attributes level to add whatever your skill is to that attribute. For example, if you were trying to impress and make friends with someone, you would roll a charm skill rather than rolling a fellowship roll. Okay, done. There are two basic types of skills. There are basic skills and there are advanced skills. The main difference is that basic skills are skills that everyone has. Advanced skills are skills that only specific people have based on their occupation, based on their class, based on their species. Like, for example, an elf or a dwarf. Okay, moving on. We're going to go and break down grouped skills. Group skills are skills that are similar to each other. For example, a language is a group skill. Some languages, Reiklander or Bretonnian or Magic or Mutish, these are all under the language category. And the reason why this is important is because sometimes, because of your career or because of your occupation or because of your species, you gain access to a skill with the any in brackets. This allows you to have any skill in that group skill. So for example, any language, you can choose the language you have mastery over. Okay, so that's just something that you should keep in mind. My advice is to always choose a language that you're going to use. Always choose a group skill that you find useful. Which skills are useful? Well, just listen. I'll walk you through the entire thing. Okay, let's go through the master skill list. First off is animal care. Animal care is an incredibly useful skill. It's incredibly useful for horsemen, incredibly useful for people that have to fight against horsemen. Okay, why is it important? Well, first off, it has to do with spotting an illness. Spotting an illness in your animals. Gosh, how many times is your horse going to die of poison, die of infection before you spot the illness? If you have no animal care, it's going to happen often. Second is you're going to find out why they are feeling discomfort. Incredibly important if the game master decides to injure their hooves or do something that would make that horse a substandard mount. And on the other hand, it doesn't need to be a horse. It could be a wolf. It could be a dog. It could be a lot of animals, a lot of animal companions. And you could also do this on offense as well. If for example, the enemy has a mount and you're trying to figure out why they're uncomfortable, you don't want to reveal that information, but maybe you can exploit it. For example, if they were afraid of fire, well then you light some more fires and you give yourself an advantage. Determining the quality of the animal, that's obvious, right? You want to buy the best quality animal. Healing the horses, healing the mounts, healing the animal companions. Ironically, this is what animal caring does, not medicine. So I would invest in this one if you want to keep your warhorse alive. Staunching the bleeding condition. We don't need to talk about that. You know what that does. And preparing an animal for display. Eventually, you're going to want to move up to the next tier of animal. You're going to want to sell them. I know we don't want to talk about that. You want to, build a connection with that animal. You want to build a connection with that companion. But sometimes it happens. It's a secondary bonus. Okay, moving on. Animal training. This is an advanced skill, so only certain people have this. It gives you the option of training your companions to give them additional skills. Very important for giving them stuff that will elevate them in usefulness. For example, a horse. A horse has you can train them to be less afraid in combat. You can train them to I can't remember it off the hand, but there are a lot of skills that you can train with your animals that can make them improve their abilities in combat. So I would invest in this if you plan on improving a single animal rather than buying better animals. Okay, next is art. Art is a basic skill, so don't need to worry about that. But this is a group skill, so there are different skills associated with this. So for example, painting is one for obvious reasons, but then there are other ones as well. For example, crafting. This is one that has to do with sculpting and also crafting weapons, which would be a really good one to have. All right, next is athletics. Athletics is one of the most useful basic skills to have, your ability to jump, run, and move. I would always invest a little bit in athletics. Now, why is this important? Well, this is important for exploiting rough terrain to your advantage, climbing up a hill, climbing up a cliff, wading through water, and having the enemy not be able to follow you. There's so many reasons why you would take this. Next is bribery, very specialized skill if you want to be someone that talks to other people. So great in a campaign that has a lot of social checks, that has a lot of people in it. Basically any campaign you would ever have. Now, there is a caveat here, and it basically is some people don't like offering bribes. Some people are very selfish and very greedy, and they like to keep their money. Bribery requires that you have the ability to relinquish that money, to give a little bit of it to gain more. So if you're the kind of person that holds the money, like holds your purse tightly, you don't need to take this. But if you do, then take the skill. It goes beyond just trying to bribe someone. It also determines whether someone can be bribed, which is extremely important. If you're trying to bribe your way past, for example, an army checkpoint, or you're trying to bribe your way out of jail. A lot of ways to do it, and this is just an example of it. I'm not going to read into it. Channeling. Channeling is an incredibly important ability for magic. It's an advanced skill, so only for magicians. If you're not doing magician, you can skip this part. When you do this, you call upon your ability to control the winds of magic, and if you roll successfully, you're going to improve your magical skill. You're going to improve your ability to cast. Charm. Charm is a basic skill that everyone has and everyone should invest in. Charm is your ability to make friends. Charm is your ability to make people, like you, and they'll give up more information. They'll be friendlier to you. It's just a very great skill to have, a very basic skill to have that is almost universally helpful, but not decisive. There are other decisive social skills that I'll show you. This is not one of them, but it's always great to have. All right. And so, if you use Charm as an action, you calculate the number of targets to effect. And this is just talking a little bit about how you can make Charm to make people not want to attack you, and you gain advantage. So, it's good to have. You can also beg using Charm as well. Charm Animal, incredibly important for talking with neutral animals. When you pass a Charm Animal test, you allow yourself to influence one of these animals. So for example, you come across, a wounded bear, and you don't want to fight them, you want to take care of them, you do that. There are a few ways of using Charm Animal that would be pretty good. One would be trying to avoid a fight. For example, you come across a pack of wolves, maybe you charm them into not attacking you, you avoid the whole combat. Normally, you'd be happy to fight wolves, but sometimes you don't want to give away your position. Maybe you're tracking someone and you don't want the wolves to fight you, you want the wolves to fight the people you're trying to track. Well, that would be very useful in that situation. Great for hunters, great for rangers. Climb. Climb is a pretty useful ability if you're in rough terrain. If you're in a place that has a lot of plains, a lot of farmland, then obviously don't invest in climb. But otherwise, climb is really useful for mountains, really useful for hills, and really useful for, sometimes caves. Especially caverns, if they're really deep caverns, really deep ravines. It helps you climb. We kind of go over a little bit of this in the movement section, in the movement guide, so I would take a look at that. But essentially, it improves the rate at which you climb up and down if you invest in this ability. Next is consume alcohol. Gosh, how many taverns have you ever visited in your D&D career? You gotta say there's been a lot, right? And what do we have here? These are all the bonuses that you can get from getting drunk. What do you say? What do you know? This is fantastic, right? If you fail, you also take a penalty. So if you have this, then you should drink alcohol. You should drink it a lot. But if you don't have this, then maybe you should be a little more frugal with your alcohol drinking habits. And you get bonuses if you drink well. Alright, next is cool. Your ability to be cool is your ability to remain calm under stress. Your ability to stay cool, your ability to stay frosty. Oh my goodness, how many times do you use cool? You use it in a lot of different circumstances to resist someone charming you, right? Someone trying to deceive you into, having a friendly impression of them, trying to make you intimidate you, trying to make you terrorize you. Anything that debuffs you psychologically, you would resist with cool. So cool is incredibly important to have, incredibly important to invest in. I would put at least a few points in this. Dodge. Dodge is another incredibly useful ability. Sometimes, most of the time in combat, you have the ability to parry a blow. You have the ability to block a blow with either a shield or your weapon. But sometimes the blow is just too big for you to block, to parry. Sometimes you need to dodge. And this is incredibly important for example, for a duelist. When you have that frail little dagger and you can't block that two-handed greatsword or two-handed great axe that's coming down on your head and you need to dodge, well, you're going to want to have a great dodge skill in that case. But if you're a big warrior with a giant shield and a giant sword, then maybe you don't need to dodge as much. Maybe you can just block. Keep that in mind. Drive. It's not your personal drive, it's your ability to drive vehicles. So are you going to be driving a coach? Are you going to be driving a cart? Are you going to be driving any of the other vehicles that are going to be located in the campaign? If there aren't that many vehicles, don't invest in it. Don't invest in this. If there are, then I would invest at least a little bit, depending on if you're the designated driver. That's the key question here. All right, moving on. Obviously, so there's some crashing, and you don't want to crash. It's going to cause a ton of damage. Endurance. Endurance is a very, very important skill. It's like a constitution saving throw. If you've ever played D&D 5th edition, you know how important those are. This will influence your chances of dying. This will influence your chances of getting infections. Very important to have. Always useful if you're in the front line. If you're in the back line, you never get hit. Not that big of a deal until you get hit, right? Entertain, incredibly useful in specialized circumstances. If you're a jester, if you're an entertainer, if you're someone that needs to appeal to people, to find a way to introduce yourself into a social conversation, then you're going to want to get levels in entertain. Are you the designated person that gets a favorable impression with people? Are you the person in the party that goes into the tavern and makes friends? Are you the person that goes into a conversation and finds a way to strike up a conversation? Entertain is a great way to do that. Evaluate. Don't think of this as investigate. Think of this as evaluate the rarity of an item to get an insight into an item. It's all about the items here. Identifying if the item is good quality, if it's bad quality, and if it's a counterfeit. I repeat, a counterfeit. This will help you identify the counterfeit coins and items. And if they're bad, because bad quality items are going to screw you in combat if you don't have this. I would make sure that one person in the party has, and one person that's willing to share, mind you, willing to share this skill, has this skill. But otherwise, it's a pretty nuanced skill. It's pretty specialized to merchants and people that buy stuff, people that want good quality items. Gamble. Are you a gambler? Are you someone that likes to take risks? You could do the gamble test. And when you do that, when you play cards, when you play dice, you'll win more money. How much money? Well, I'll determine through the gambling mechanic. And it doesn't say here, but I guess on the highest success level you win, and on a tie or the lower scoring player drops out, and they do a gamble test again. So yeah, more success levels, more wins that you get. Gossip. Now the charm and gossip, what's the difference, right? Charm makes it so they're friendly and they were willing to talk to you. Gossip is your ability to kind of squeeze information out of people, squeeze useful information, squeeze useful rumors out of them. So that's the difference there. It's a slight difference, but they're both important. And success levels, either you gain pieces of information. So the more successful you are at this, the more information you gain. And a good game master, basically every game master, is going to give you more information depending on how many success levels you do. So I would invest in this if you're the person that's talking. Or if there's another person in the party that's highly good at charming the informants, charming the people in town, you can be the gossip person that asks the follow-up questions. There's no shame in divvying up the skills and making sure that you work together. There's no shame at all. In fact, the game master will appreciate that. Haggle. Oh my goodness, this is an incredibly useful skill for gaining more profit in trades. Very specialized, so maybe not incredibly always useful, but not incredibly useful. Let me rephrase that. It's moderately useful in certain situations, but not campaign ending. Okay, having a few more coins is not going to make or break your campaign. Like losing the ability to, losing a cool test and then becoming terrorized, that will end your campaign. That could potentially kill your character. Gaining a few less coins here and there, it's not going to end your campaign. So haggle, it's almost a universally useful skill, but not, I mean, it's not incredibly helpful like I originally thought it was. All right, heal. Heal is very useful for longer campaigns. Very useful for avoiding dealing with attrition, dealing with stuff where the game master throws, combat encounter after combat encounter against you, or if your players are munchkins and decide to go into the dungeon and fight one pack of enemies after another. This will help you treat wounds. This will help you diagnose an illness. This will help you heal stuff once. It doesn't say here, but you should do it like once a day. There's going to be a limit set by the game master. You can't just heal indefinitely. That's not how the body works. You have to take some time to heal. And so the healing just lets you heal a certain amount per, and also staunch bleeding condition. The bleeding condition is like a damage over time. And this is just more rules on that. Failed heal test. I'm not going to go over it. I need to make this fast and efficient. Intimidate, so your ability to use your terror and your ability to threaten someone into getting what you want. They resist with a cool test. If you succeed, then they'll back off. If you fail, they won't care about you anymore, and they're going to resist you. That's basically it. You can go over the example yourself if you want. Alright, moving on. Intuition. Intuition is your ability to feel if something is wrong. Very useful when you're starting a fight. Very useful if you believe someone, what they're saying is the truth or not. If you believe that their general attitude is like a facade. In general, it's an X factor. It's something that doesn't really help in all situations. It helps in all situations, but it's not really it's not tangible in how it helps you. There is one specific time that might help, and that is in combat. If you do an intuition check before fighting, if you weigh the environment, you talk to your game master about how your intuition, give an example of how your intuition helps people fight, then it'll give you an advantage, which is great. But besides this intelligence, your ability to ability to analyze the environment, your ability to find out if someone's lying to you or their motives are pure, doesn't really have a place. Kind of an X factor. Language. I mean, there's nothing more we need to say about that. Useful if you need to speak the language. Alright, moving on. These are all the languages. I'm not going to go over them. Alright, moving on. Leadership. Leadership is actually a very specialized skill, and it can be useful in the right builds. It's your ability to lead others. So if you're commanding a squad, you might want to invest in leadership later on. A successful leadership test will allow you to issue orders to a number of targets equal to your fellowship bonus plus success levels. If the targets are your natural subordinates, then your target commands are usually unopposed. So there is a great thing. You can command your fellow NPCs to do exactly what you want. Otherwise, they're going to act in their default manner, and usually default NPCs will either stay where they are and block, or they might stay where they are and order the occasional attack. I mean, these are people that are concerned about their lives. Sometimes in combat, you can use your leadership to encourage people, to give them more bonuses to the psychology tests. Psychology basically means terror. Basically means, sometimes your enemies will make people run away. Sometimes your enemies will make people act crazy. Sometimes your enemies will make people act in a lot of ways. And psychology, it's going to help in those situations, especially if they have AoE attacks. You can also use it to transfer advantage to one of your allies, plus one more advantage per success level scored. Lore, basically knowledge test, basically having a specialized piece of knowledge, like engineering, like lot of things. I can't remember them off the geology. Here's another one. Melee, basic groups. There's a lot of melee skills. For example, um, there are cavalry skills, fencing, flail, parry, two-handed, and it measures your ability to hit, and the more skilled you are, the more damage you're going to deal as well, because success levels add to your damage. But the most basic improvement here for improving this skill is your ability to hit your enemy. I always max this out if I'm using a melee character, either basic or whatever the specialized skill is. So for example, if I had a two-handed swordsman, I would max out two-handed almost instantly because I love doing combat encounters. Navigation is kind of useful if you're exploring an area you haven't been through. This will determine if you can get out of there alive. If you get lost and you keep wandering deeper and deeper into danger, yeah, it doesn't matter how bulky your party is. It doesn't matter how many cool tests you succeed or how high your weapon skill is. If you keep going, eventually even the best parties die of attrition, and if you can't navigate, you're never going to find your way out of there. Outdoor survival, incredibly useful for places that don't give a lot of food. If you're in a place that doesn't have towns or villages that are stocked with food that you can buy from, you're going to want someone that goes and hunts and gives you food. Because if you don't have that, they're going to have to make a challenging endurance test, or they're going to receive the fatigued condition. And if you receive too many of these, they're going to debuff your characters and you're not going to be able to survive. Also, when you're fighting in the wilderness, you can make an outdoor survival test to receive +1 advantage. It's basically the same thing as intuition. It's another way of gaining an advantage in combat. So I would invest in this if you want to do combat out in the outdoors, in the rough. Alright, next, perception. Gosh, almost universally useful. Max this one out every chance you get. Gosh, every chance you get, detecting danger, detecting the trap, detecting if someone's following you, resisting someone that pickpocketed you, resisting someone that's trying to sneak up on you. Do I need to say more? I don't. Reform. Okay. Sometimes you need to perform for people, to entertain them, to juggle. Okay, sometimes, yeah, this is a specialized skill, usually when you're trying to engage in a conversation, when you're trying to make a good impression. Very specialized. I would rarely invest in this unless I wanted to go with something that is kind of fun. Pick lock. Gosh. You need to pick locks sometimes. You need to sneak out of jail. You need to go into a castle. You need to open a chest. Gosh, here are all the lock types. Here's the difficulty associated with it. Here's the success levels you're going to need. If you don't have a thief, oh man, you're going to get punished so hard. So I would recommend you pick this up. Play a musical instrument. Sometimes useful, not always. That's basically that. Pray, your ability, very, very important for religious characters. For a warrior priest, they can give you an advantage. They can help you in your religion associated bonuses. Take a look at this if you are playing a warrior priest, or if you're playing someone that is associated with religion. Ranged, exact same thing as melee basic, exact same thing. Your chance of hitting the target, and increases your chance of dealing more damage if you get more success levels. Period. Done. Research, not that important in the moment of combat in completing the actual mission, but incredibly important in later on when you're trying to improve your character, because you research stuff that you need, and then you can become more adept. Your character can rapidly improve. So for example, it requires that you have the read-write skill, but you can go to libraries to gain more useful information. So it's great for people that love crafting world building, to crafting a specific narrative that you want. And that can be extremely useful in the right circumstances. Now I'm going to leave it to you to decide what circumstances those are. Alright, moving on. Ride. Well, my goodness, if you're riding a horse, you're going to need to know ride. Otherwise, you're going to be thrown from your horse. You're going to end up with your pants down, your butt on the ground, and they're going to surround you and they're going to destroy you. riding a horse, riding a mule, riding a donkey, riding anything, you're going to want to know how to ride. You're going to want to know how to avoid the branches. You're going to want to know how to not get thrown from your horse. That's basically it. So anytime you want to jump a ravine, anytime you want to jump a boulder, anytime you want to jump across a river, you're going to need to know this. And sometimes if you're racing someone, you don't want to fall off, right? You're racing in pursuit of someone. You don't want to fall off. Sometimes when the horse gets hit by magic, my goodness, you're going to need to take a ride test to find out if you're not thrown from the horse. All right, moving on, we have row. Rowing an oar. Rowing a boat. Very specialized skill. Hardly a situation where you would need it unless you actually had a rowboat. Sail. Like I said, just like with rowing, sailing a ship, right? Gauging the wind. So if you're the captain of a ship, or if you're one of the hands on a ship, then yes, you're going to need it. Someone's going to need it. But if it's not a naval campaign, you probably shouldn't invest in it. Period. Done. Secret signs. So this is spy work, right? Spycraft, communicating secretly. Are you part of a secret society? Do you need to give out secret hints or secret messages? Sometimes the answer is yes. A lot of the time the answer is no. Kind of depends on what you want to go with and if you're connected to a secret society, a secret, connected with espionage, working between two nations. Do you have dreams of becoming a double agent? Do you have dreams of becoming a thief? Nah, that's basically it. And sometimes, if a player does have this skill, then I, as a game master, would include occasional secret hints to give them, just because I love rewarding my players for picking kind of nuanced skills. Sometimes I'm not able to do that. Sometimes I'm not able to help them. But this is at least one that I would be able to, be able to reward them for picking a skill that's not just the basic bread and butter skill. Alright, set trap. I mean, my goodness, it's so basic, right? Especially if you're a hunter, you're setting these traps, you're setting a snare, you're disarming traps. This is also a disarm trap ability. So yeah, incredibly useful, but very specialized. What about sleight of hand? It's just like picking pockets. That's it. Performing tricks. That's basically it. It can also help you with your gamble skill if you choose to do so. You'd have to make an argument for how it helps, but I mean, that'd be pretty simple to make. So yep, that's basically it there. Stealth, oh my goodness. You already know that stealth is useful. Sneaking up on your enemies, getting away from combat, making sure that you can get away safely and cleanly. So many useful situations in stealth. Gaining the advantage because you surprise them. Swim. What? My goodness. How many times have you ever drowned in your D&D 5th edition games? Not often, right? Well, in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, drowning is a seriously risky endeavor. I think. Not actually sure on the drowning tests off the top of my head, but basically swim will help you avoid drowning. Alright, that's basically it on that. I would say it's very specialized, and I don't think you should invest too much in it. I mean, you're going to be on dry land most of the time, and if you're ever planning on jumping into the water in a full suit of armor, then I think you're probably in a naval campaign, and you're going to want to do swim in that case. Track. Ability to follow tracks left by others. Incredibly useful if you're trying to hunt someone. Incredibly useful in special campaigns. You decide if that's one of yours. Do you need to obtain a hostage? You need to get some hostage back? Do you have a bounty hunter? You need to track someone down and kill them? Those are situations where a track would be very useful. But if you're in a different situation where, say, you're in a political campaign and you need to make friends with other people, then track is probably not the best case. You would want social skills instead. Trade. Wow, extremely useful. Your ability to sell something to another person, your ability to be useful to another person, for them to be useful to you. Often they're like an extended test where you kind of deepen the relationship between one person and another. You can impress them with your ability to cook something. And some skills require less time. For example, cooking to impress a local lord requires less time than constructing a warship with the trade shipwright. But this is basically a specialized skill that you can trade on the market. So apothecary, calligraphy, chandler, carpentry, cooking. Alright, moving on. counterpart talents. So that's basically the end of the skills section. I hope you had a great time, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a great one.